The residential neighborhood where Luke and Marie had built their life was quiet, with simple and well-maintained houses. Theirs was no different, a modest two-story house with a small garden in front that Marie tended on weekends. Luke loved the sound of her laughter mixed with the noise of children playing in the street. It was a happy home, at least on the surface. Luke Lawson was a 38-year-old man, of medium height and curly hair, which Marie said gave him a charming look. He worked as a manager at a construction company for more than 10 years, a stable job that provided for the family. Every Sunday, he wore his best shirt and took the family to church. To neighbors and acquaintances, he was the image of the good father and devoted husband. Marie was 36 years old and had a serene beauty. Her eyes seemed to hold an ancient and calm wisdom. She worked as a secretary in an office, dividing her time between work and taking care of the house and Julia, the couple's 12-year-old daughter. Julia was a perfect mix of the two, her mother's eyes and her father's wide smile, as well as an intelligence that was a source of pride for both. Their marriage would turn 14 years old the following month. They had plans to have a small vow renewal, something simple but meaningful. Luke had promised to make a special surprise for Marie. She smiled, trying to believe that this time would be different. "I was thinking we could take that trip we've always talked about," Luke said one morning while they were having coffee. "We could go to the coast, rent a beach house for a week." Marie lifted her eyes from the cup, a glimmer of hope crossing her gaze. "Julia would love it. She's always wanted to see the ocean," she replied, trying to contain her excitement. Plans with Luke had lately rarely come to fruition. "I'll start saving," he promised, holding her hand across the table. Luke's hands were rough, marked by labor, but they had a gentle touch when holding hers. Marie felt the familiar warmth of that touch, recalling the young man she had fallen in love with years ago. That night, Luke went out again. He said it was just a meeting with friends from work, but she knew he was going to gamble once more. "Don't worry, love. It's just fun. I have it under control," he said, kissing her forehead before leaving. Marie stood at the window watching the car drive away. A familiar knot formed in her throat. Initially, the bet seemed truly harmless. A poker night here, another one there. But in recent months, the outings had become more frequent, and something in Luke's eyes had changed. The house grew quiet on the nights he went out. Marie usually spent the time helping Julia with her homework or watching a movie. That night, she found her daughter sitting on the bed, hugging her pillow. "Did Daddy leave again?" asked the girl, with an understanding beyond her years. "He went to meet some friends, sweetheart. He'll be back soon," Marie replied, sitting beside her daughter and stroking her hair. "He always comes back different," Julia murmured. Marie felt a tightness in her chest. Children notice much more than we imagine. She hugged her daughter tightly, as if she could protect her from what was to come. It was on a regular Tuesday afternoon that Marie felt the first real impact of the problem. The shopping cart was full, basic household items and ingredients for Julia's favorite cake. When the cashier swiped the card, the terminal emitted an unpleasant sound. "Insufficient funds," the cashier informed with an embarrassed smile. Marie felt her face burn. Her hands began to tremble as she searched for some money in her wallet. She found only a few notes, insufficient to cover all the purchases. With a heavy heart, she apologized and selected only the essential items. That night dinner was silent. Julia noticed the absence of the cake, but didn't ask the reason. Luke arrived late, with the characteristic smell of cheap alcohol and cigarettes. "Luke, we need to talk," Marie said when he sat at the table. "Not now, Marie. I'm tired," he replied, serving himself the dinner she had kept warm. "The card was declined today at the store," she continued, keeping her voice low so that Julia wouldn't hear from the bedroom. "What is happening with our money?" Luke stopped eating, staring at his plate. For a moment, Marie saw shame in his eyes. "I had some unforeseen expenses," he murmured. "I'll sort it out by Friday when I get paid, I promise." Marie wanted to believe. Her heart longed to believe in that man who promised to fix everything, as he always had over the years. She nodded silently, swallowing the questions that burned in her throat. Friday arrived, but the promise was broken like so many others. Luke explained that he had lent money to a colleague in trouble who had accumulated bills. Marie listened, feeling the words sound empty. The following weeks were a gradual descent down an increasingly dark path. Luke started coming home later. Sometimes he didn't come back at all. When he did show up, he was either euphoric, talking about an impending great victory, or he was downcast and irritable. It was on a rainy night that he arrived completely drunk, staggering through the living room. Marie helped him to the sofa where he collapsed, mumbling incoherent apologies before vomiting on the carpet she had bought with money from overtime at the office. While she cleaned the floor with Luke asleep on the sofa, Marie felt silent tears running down her face. Her fingers touched his hair, now dishevelled and lifeless, like the rest of the figure that once had been so vibrant. "What happened to you?" she whispered to her unconscious husband. "Where did the man I knew go?" The apartment, once a cosy refuge, now felt oppressive. The walls that had witnessed so many happy moments also held painful secrets. Marie felt suffocated by the weight of lies and broken promises. The bills began to pile up. Notices of due dates arrived almost daily. Marie worked overtime trying to make up for Luke's financial failures. On the rare occasions he was present, he made grand promises. "I'm about to turn things around, Marie. I just need a little more time," he would say, with a glimmer in his eyes that mixed desperation and hope. To keep a roof over their heads when the rent was late for the third consecutive month, Marie sold the jewellery she had inherited from her mother. It was a modest collection, but full of sentimental value. Each piece carried memories of special moments, gifts given with love. When Luke found out, he fell to his knees before her, crying like a lost child. "I swear I will stop, Marie. I swear on our family," he sobbed, clinging to her hands. "I'll never do it again." She stroked his hair, feeling a mix of love and exhaustion. She wanted to believe, needed to believe, because her love was greater than the pain, greater than the disappointment. Or at least that's what she told herself every night before falling asleep. The breaking point came on an ordinary day. Marie was at work when she received a call from the bank. The voice on the other end was professional, almost mechanical. "Mrs. Lawson, we are calling to confirm the total withdrawal made from the joint savings account this morning." Marie felt her blood run cold in her veins. "What withdrawal?" she asked, her voice weak. "The transfer of the full amount to Mr. Luke Lawson's individual account." With trembling hands, Marie checked the bank app on her phone. The savings account they had been nurturing for years for Julia's college was empty. Every cent they had saved, every sacrifice they made, everything had vanished with a single click. At that moment, something inside Marie broke definitively. It wasn't just money. It was Julia's future. It was the trust violated. It was the certainty that the man she loved was completely lost. She left work early, claiming a family emergency. She arrived home with a strange, almost supernatural calm. She packed a suitcase and selected some clothes for herself and Julia. She didn't cry. It was as if the tears had dried up inside her. On the kitchen table, she carefully laid out 3 items: her wedding ring, a photo of Julia, and a Bible her father had given her when she was young. She opened it to the page that spoke about the dangers of obsession and how it can consume even the noblest souls. When she picked up Julia from school, there was no need for much explanation. The girl looked at the suitcase in the car and nodded, as if she had been expecting this moment. "Are we going to Grandma's house?" she asked simply. "For now, yes," replied Marie, feeling a mix of relief and pain at her daughter's understanding. When Luke arrived home that night, he found the apartment immersed in silence. The absence of Marie and Julia was almost palpable, an emptiness that seemed to swallow the air around him. He saw the objects on the table and laughed nervously. She always threatened to leave during fights, but she never really did. She'll be back, he told himself. She always comes back. But the days dragged on and turned into weeks. The apartment, once full of life with the smell of homemade food and laughter, became a cold and disordered space, mirroring Luke's soul. He sought comfort in gambling, betting even higher, as if he could fill the void left by Marie and Julia. It was on a random early morning, after losing everything again, that Luke found himself on his knees in the bathroom. The bitter taste of the drink burned his throat as he vomited the little dignity he had left. He cried like an abandoned child, finally feeling the weight of everything he had lost. Between sobs, he whispered a desperate prayer, not knowing if God still listened to someone like him. And in the midst of that absolute despair, he felt something he didn't immediately recognize. A genuine desire to change. For Marie, for Julia, and for himself. The rebuilding was painful and slow. Luke started attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings, facing his demons one day at a time. He took on additional work to start paying off his debts. He began going out with old friends who weren't involved in gambling and drinking. He wrote letters to Marie that he never sent. In them, he talked about his progress, his struggles, and how much he missed them. The letters accumulated in a box under his bed, silent witnesses to his journey. Time passed, and the sharp pain of loss turned into a constant whisper. Luke learned to live with his mistakes and to accept responsibility for his choices. He suffered greatly knowing that Marie would not allow him to be around their daughter until he was sober and away from gambling. She feared that it could be dangerous for the girl. He moved to a smaller apartment, more compatible with his new reality. He knew he would have to change, at any cost. He found a new job, more modest, but honest. It was on a morning he had longed for, almost a year and a half later, that he was prepared to see Julia and spend some time with her. Luke's heart almost stopped when they entered the bakery. His eyes met Marie's and time seemed to freeze. She looked different. Shorter hair, a renewed sparkle in her eyes, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "You look better," Marie said simply, after a few moments of silence with a sad but calm smile. There were no accusations, no reproaches, just a serene realization that he seemed healthier, more present within himself. "I'm trying," he replied, with an honesty he hadn't felt in a long time. Julia looked at her father with a mix of curiosity and caution. She didn't run to hug him as she used to, but neither did she back away when he smiled at her. At that moment, Luke understood that Marie hadn't left out of hatred or revenge. She left out of love, love for herself, love for their daughter, and, in a way, love for him too. Because sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them hit rock bottom alone, so they can find the strength to fight and rise. Months after that meeting, Marie allowed Luke to become part of Julia's life again, through a formal agreement mediated by lawyers. Initially supervised meetings gradually evolved into Saturday afternoons together, and even some weekends. Marie and Luke did not become a couple again. Some bridges, once broken, cannot be rebuilt in the same way. But they found a new balance, a different form of family that worked for all of them. On an autumn afternoon, sitting on a park bench while watching Julia play, Luke reflected on everything he had lost and the little he had managed to recover. He was not the man he had dreamed of being, but neither was he the man who had been lost in gambling and drinking. He learned the hard way that sometimes we need to lose something immensely valuable to understand its true worth. That genuine love does not always mean staying by someone's side, but rather doing what is necessary for everyone to grow, even if the process is painful. The gambling unfortunately ended his marriage, and now he knew that he would never let that addiction harm his life again. He wanted to be a better person and a better father to Julia. And as he watched Julia running with the wind messing up her hair, so similar to Marie's, Luke felt a peace that did not come from perfection, but from acceptance. From understanding that life rarely gives us perfect second chances, but always offers us the opportunity to start over, even if on a different path than we had planned. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.